TAGNBRAG Nation and Goose Chasers, welcome back to another episode of Goose Chasing, where we, woo woo, wah woo wee, wah wah woo wah. Where we are on the goose chase of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's really what we are about. It is not a goose chase for goose meat or goose hunting. It is the goose chase of whatever lights your soul on fire. For us, it's the lifestyle of a hunter. It's the lifestyle of an outdoorsman, of a land manager, of a steward of the land. And that's just what we choose. But for you, it could be something else. But anyway, we are back here. And unfortunately, this episode is airing on Thursday. We had a few things going on this week where our schedules wouldn't align. And I finally just said, you know what? We can't go without a podcast this week. We've got to get it done for the people. So I am here solo style, your boy David, in the original TAGNBRAG HQ in my dad's basement. This is where it all began. So, without further ado, Goose Chasing is brought to you by TAGNBRAG and TAGNBRAG Productions. We are also brought to you by TAGNBRAG Apparel. Find the finest TAGNBRAG logoed apparel at tagnbrag.co. Also join the Make Hunt Camps Great Again movement. Get you some gear. And let's continue to make hunt camps great again. Anyway, back to where we were. I am in TAGNBRAG HQ, the OG HQ in Dad's basement. Kind of have some nostalgia sitting down here right now at the same desk where, this all started. The same desk where I learned how to edit. Literally self-taught, watching YouTube videos on how to edit. The same desk Dean and I sat side by side a lot of times until wee hours in the morning. Quite honestly, just trying to figure it out. Trying to figure out what our niche was, what our answer was, what our value was to slip into the hunting industry, because we were so passionate about it. We were students of the game. We watched a lot of outdoor television growing up, Monster Bucks, Realtree road trips. We watched some of the Bone Collector as they were kind of evolving into that. Watched a lot of the Drurys, watched the Primo guys. And so this is where we kind of took all of what we were consuming and started to make it into our own. And it's cool to be sitting here right now. I look around and there's bucks on the wall. My first buck ever is down here. My first buck on camera. Dean's first buck on camera, which was ironically the first deer that we ever filmed, successful hunt that we ever filmed together. There's Dean's first North Dakota buck here, one of my dad's deer here, some of my dad's first deer here, a lot of little dinks on plaques on the wall. You go down the wall down here and you just look at, different photos, the Shooter 8. You look at my last buck from Ohio. You look at one of my other bucks from Ohio that I shot from the ground late season. Dino got a coyote. We got Cuzzy up here. There's a lot of old memories that are coming back through my head as I sit down here. I just found this as well. This was our first Badlands finish. Well, first to third place finish ever. The fourth annual Badlands presented by Garmin 2017. Holy smokes, that was like 8 years ago. And this was the fourth annual. That's crazy. We've been doing this a lot longer than it feels like. We still feel like it's part of the beginning of the journey for us, but in fact, we are well on our way. There's some old notes up here, just some kind of urgent, important notes, kind of daily tasks that we would knock out. Actually, our whiteboard on the wall over here is still filled with like old apparel notes and deliverables and stuff like that we were trying to keep track of. So it's fun. It's fun being down here and just kind of taking it all in. I think on any journey that you're on any goose chase you're on in life, you're always chasing that next thing. For me, it's like I'm already chasing next season. I'm already looking forward to turkey season. I'm already looking forward to once the snow melts and kind of walking the woods and trying to find some sheds on bucks that we've been watching and that we've been hunting essentially throughout this past season. And so you're always on kind of that grind of what's next, in the near future and also in the distant future. But I think it's important sometimes to kind of sit back and give yourself some flowers, give yourself some kudos on where you came from, on the hard work that's been put in, on the success that you've had, and just kind of the evolution of what you've turned into as a human being, for my sake, as a videographer, as a hunter, as a content creator. And yeah, this is allowing me to do that. It's pretty cool. I'm looking at a couple of the bucks on the wall just to kind of tell a story or two of the deer that are in here, just because they're sparking memories and they're sparking just. It's funny when you, as a hunter, and you have to hunt to understand this. Maybe other people understand it based on what they do or kind of what makes them tick. But as a hunter, there's not many hunts where I can't go back and literally like play-by-play it, almost down to the minute. But especially the hunts that were either successful or, the hunts where you had an encounter where it was like one of the ones that got away. Those hunts, for whatever, it's like you can almost go back and feel every minute, every second of that specific scenario, opportunity, or hunt. And it's funny, the one, so Dean's buck, the first deer that we ever got on film successfully, we were sitting together. We had bought a Campbell cameras, like I think it was a Canon Vixia. I don't even know the numbers or the product model or whatever, but it was literally like, it was the first kind of like quote unquote big boy camera that we ever had. And at that time we were rocking like a muddy tree arm that you could have literally hung from yourself and done pull-ups out of the tree. The base was like probably like 14 or 15 pounds in itself. The tree arm was like 4 feet long. You could have wrapped it around you twice. And just getting that to the woods in itself was a feat. And then you had all the camera gear that we had. We had GoPros, I think an original GoPro Hero at the time. And we maybe carried around another small camcorder. But nonetheless, like self-filming at that point for us was not existent. It wasn't even real. Like we weren't even thinking about self-filming. Number one, because everybody that we watched on TV, everybody had a cameraman. That was kind of the standard. That's how you did it. That's how you had to get it done. There was a hunter and then there was a cameraman. So for many, many years, Dean and I essentially sacrificed half of our season in order to be filming, one of us filming the other. And once if you're serious enough about doing this, for more than a hobby, or you kind of want to go on the pursuit of making it some sort of a career, even if it's part-time, like you realize that the discipline that you have to have is film first, like camera first. That's just it. You're trying to capitalize on a story. You're trying to capture a story. And as well as I do, when you're on that journey, the one time that you don't take the camera in the woods is the time that you're gonna have an encounter, is the time that you're gonna get an opportunity at the buck that you were after. And why even let that be a thing? So we were so dedicated to the filming aspect of things, because it's what we wanted, that we missed out on a lot of opportunities to successfully shoot a deer with our bow. Like that's just the reality of the situation. There was literally years when we first started, like years that we went without tagging a buck or any deer because of the camera for one reason or another. I'm filming, I'm on the deer, Dean can't see him, or vice versa. Or, the opportunity happens so fast that we're not both on the same page to get our act together and, both be one be filming, one be ready to shoot at the same time. Or, you're walking in and you have an opportunity, to kill a deer walking in, and the camera's in the bag on your back. Or you name the scenario, we've been in it, we've failed it, it's failed us, and we've learned the hard way. But in this particular time, we were sitting in a tree stand that we called the back pine, and this tree was awesome. Like, it was a rut cruising spot like you would never believe. It's kind of in this, up on the top of this ridge in the hardwoods, and there was like 3 trails within bow range of this tree that the deer cruised on the daily, and especially the bucks. When the bucks were cruising alone looking for doe, you could almost guarantee that you would get a shot out of this tree if you put your time in, for a handful of days in November. So that's what we were doing. It was kind of like a dreary, rainy, a little bit foggy type of day. And if I remember right, it was a little bit warm actually. And so we're sitting there, we had seen a couple deer, and it was kind of getting later in the morning. And all of a sudden this, 2.5-year-old 8-point comes strolling through. I mean, he's reading the script. He is literally going to come on the closest trail to us. He'll hit the trail in front of the stand at probably 12 yards. Coming right to left, and I've got the camera. I'm filming around the back side of the tree. Dean is on the very front side of the tree, and it's made to order. This buck is going to walk right out in front of Dean. Dean's going to smoke him. It's finally about to happen. We were literally just trying to get the monkey off of our back as far as filming a successful whitetail hunt. Well, this buck, he gets to about 25 yards, and we're sitting right to our right is a logging road that essentially runs, north and south for us, like straight away from us and straight behind us. And he's coming perpendicular to that on one of the 3 trails that literally cross that logging road and go up the hill a little bit. He's basically, what he's doing, he's coming out of our bottom, and he's going to go up the hill to probably check another bedding area up on top of the hill, which was a very consistent pattern for these deer. We're in this pine. We're way up high. 25 feet high. Me, I hate heights. I'm scared shitless up there, but I'm just hanging on for dear life, trying to press record, act like I know what I'm doing, and hopefully get something on film, and hopefully Dean can make the shot. Well, this buck comes, he hits a logging road and does a 90-degree turn, starts walking pretty much away from us, but he's hard quartering away. And he gets to a certain point, stops. Dean gets the full draw, and I'm like, this is perfect. This is perfect. And when he stopped, he kind of like almost turned towards us a little bit, but he was probably like dead broadside at that point because he was already angled away from us. Dean lets the arrow go. It looked good. But I think the angle for us being so high up in the tree, the shot was a little bit low. And this deer ran off like 40 yards, and he stopped, and he's just standing there. And he kind of goes like waddling off into the treetops a little bit. We had recently logged our property, and so there's a bunch of treetops, a lot of times where the deer, would come in and out of because they were bedding in there. But he goes in there, we watch him lay down, and, as fired up as we were to finally get a shot, it's like the deer didn't die right away. And now it's time to put the after the shot skills to the test that we talk about so much. So we waited. We waited, probably sat in that stand for probably another 6-7 hours, all the way until like 4 o'clock in the evening. We didn't get out. We watched them get up and kind of walk out of sight a little bit. And at that point, this was 5-6 hours before that. We had watched them get up and kind of walk out of sight a little bit. But we wanted to just be in the tree and stay in the tree because we wanted to see if we could see this deer get up again. If not, we were going to, before it got dark, we were just going to kind of ease down there and see if we could follow up the trail and see if we could get them. So we did that. We get down like 4:30 in the afternoon, and it's raining at this point. Like I said, it was kind of just like a weird, gray, gloomy day, a little bit warmer on the warmer side for that part of November. But we get down and we take up this trail probably about 80 yards, and we get to a certain point. And I don't know if he heard us coming or he just sensed us coming. I honestly can't remember if the wind was blowing towards him, away, or in our favor or any of that. But we watched him get up, and he was moving real slow. Like, he was not feeling good at all. And he just eased over the hill. It wasn't like he got up and blew out of there like a bat out of hell. Like, he just kind of eased over the hill. And so at that point we backed out. We're like, you know what? He's still alive. We can't push this. Unfortunately, it was raining, so we were kind of bummed. You can imagine at that point, we're trying to get our first deer ever successfully killed on camera. And now we got to play a waiting game to let this deer go overnight. So we do that. We actually go back in the morning, and the deer literally wasn't another 40-50 yards from where we last saw him, dead. Got him, celebrated. It was awesome. It was a really interesting feeling because, as any hunter knows, when you leave a deer overnight, especially when you didn't make a perfect shot, it's so bittersweet. You're making the right call to back out, but at the same time, there's no celebrating until you actually get your hands on that animal. So at that point we were pumped. We were fired up. First deer on camera. It was a nice buck. Dean's personal best at that point with a bow. Personal best up in New York. There was a lot of bests and firsts in this scenario. And mind you, like, we're well into our, quote unquote hunting journey or hunting career at that point. So that kind of kicked it all off for us. And the next year, talking about this 9-point that's right above me, which was my first deer on camera, kind of a little bit of a similar scenario. That morning, we go in the stand. It was 3-4 inches of snow on the ground. It was freezing cold. Overnight, it literally snowed 3-4 inches. We sat the afternoon prior to that. No snow, just a cold November day. The next morning, we go in. It's completely snow-covered. Snow on the trees. It's minimized the visibility. And we get in the stand, and that year, there was a buck that we called Whitey. He was a clean 10. Picture perfect, clean 10, the whitest rack that we had ever personally seen. But this deer had to be, as far as score goes, he had to be like 140-plus inch deer, maybe even a little bit more than that. He was the sought-after buck by a lot on the property that year. And we had seen him a couple times, but it was like at that point in our hunting career, those type of deer, they almost didn't exist. They were like unicorns. So you see them, okay, maybe a trail camera or something, okay, but the reality of actually getting in front of one of those deer and having an opportunity was kind of unheard of. And really for us, like, we didn't even put that on our radar because we kind of knew that would never happen. Well, we're sitting there, Dean's filming me, sitting in a stand that we call the cabin. There's an old cabin on one of the hillsides of our property. Old, like, one room cabin. I don't even know. This had to be early 1900s, 1800s maybe that this thing was built. But that was always kind of a hot area. Like, the deer always kind of conjugated right by this cabin. It was it was kind of like a little pinch point on this ridge. The deer would come out of our bottom. They would travel up on top of the hill. And actually they would end up going up and over the hill to where the back pine stand was that Dean shot the deer that we just talked about. So we're in the cabin stand and sitting there. I mean, it was just frigid cold, just getting light out. It's dead silent. Like, it's kind of it's after one of those snowfalls where it's literally the front has blown through, the seas have parted, everything is calm, but now there's snow on the trees. It was a very acoustic environment, if you will. Like, you could hear the littlest stick break from a very far distance. You could hear birds that would land on branches and just, like, flutter their wings and then fly. It was so quiet and so serene, and it's such a different and contrasting landscape from the night before. Like, you can imagine going in the night before, and it's still a cold November day, but no snow. It was, if I remember right, it was raining the night before. And then you get into almost this, like, wintry scenario where it's just white everywhere. And, man, we're sitting there, and Dean caught movement coming out of our bottom, and sure enough, it's Whitey, and he is coming right to us. The first time Dean saw him, he was probably like 60 yards. By the time he got my attention, he's probably at 40, and he's on a trail that is going to come out of our like thick kind of sanctuary bottom and come into the hardwoods where we were at, and he's going to cross a trail or one of our lanes at like 25 yards. And if you can imagine what is going through my body at that point when I identified that it was him and when he's reading the script, I am literally coming unglued. I mean, quite literally inside coming unglued, trying to keep it together on the outside, but ultimately my insides are turning left, right, and sideways, and I black out, and really I'm not even in control anymore. It's God's got the wheel, and he's just trying to take me to the promised land. This deer gets within, 10 yards of crossing into that shooting lane, and I draw. And he takes a couple more steps right at the edge of the thicket, and he stops. And I'm at full draw, and his nose is literally in the lane that I need him to step out into. His nose is in the lane. You could see, it was so cold, you could see his breath just blowing out of his nose like he was puffing on a cigarette. And he's standing there, and just like the big mature bucks do, he ain't going to mess up. And he wasn't going to mess up on that day. He stands there, and he just starts surveying the open hardwoods. And he's looking in every different direction. And his ears are twitching and turning in every different direction. And he's making it known that he is not going to make another step, or he is not going to make another move until he knows and understands that the entire area is safe. Meanwhile, as I said, it is dead silent. So as a hunter in this scenario, you can't move a muscle. You can't move a muscle. You can't make a sound. He is going to be on that sound like white on rice. And I'm at full draw. And I'm holding back. And I'm holding back. And I'm holding back. and I'm holding back. And it got to the point where I couldn't hold my bow back any longer. Didn't know when he was going to take that step. Didn't look like he was going to take that step. So as he was surveying, looking away from us, I waited till he kind of turned his head and was surveying down the hill of the hardwoods away from us, and I slowly let my bow down. Slowly. I mean, I am talking every muscle in my back and shoulder that could hold that bow from just cranking it down was flexed and activated, trying to let this thing down as slow as I could. I got to like the last 6 inches of letting down my bow, and my arrow, the end of my arrow, hit this little branch, and it kind of picked my arrow up, and it set it back down on my rest. Literally, that little bit of noise swung his head around in our direction like he had just heard a stampede of coyotes rolling his way, and he was going to be the first one to get the hell up on out of there. He swung his head in our direction. He looked, scanned around for about a second and a half. He did not look up the tree. I know he didn't, see us, but he heard enough to literally turn around, take 3 bounds backwards. I drew again. He was at 40 yards at this point. Now he's in my lane, but his body is facing straight away from me. And after his 3rd bound, he stops. Literally, all I could see was his ass, and he turns his head back, swings his head back, and looks right over his ass cheek in our direction again. Gives it another middle hoof. See you boys later. Nice try, but I gotcha. And freaking bounds off and out of our life. The deflating feeling that I had in that moment, to this day, is probably still unmatched. As a young bow hunter at that time, having an opportunity like that, like I said, that was a unicorn. That was a buck that didn't exist in our world, and he just did. And he was literally a step or 2 away from at least wearing an arrow. I'm not going to sit there and say I would have friggin' 10-ringed him, because who knows what would have happened. But I will say he was steps away from wearing an arrow. Literally 2 steps or less away from wearing an arrow. And then time and his wits and his 6th sense and his smarts as a mature deer allowed him to live. And it was... Hunting is so unforgiving, because in those scenarios, you want that scenario back so bad. Because you're just in my head, I'm like, dude, just hold your bow a little longer. Just keep it back. Just keep it back. Just keep it back. Or when you're letting it down, see that branch? See it? Pay attention to the little branch dangling over. But unfortunately, that isn't real. It's not real life. That moment will never repeat itself again. It won't. That moment is here and gone in the blink of an eye, and something that you dreamed about, something that you have thought about for years, a scenario that you've always wanted, was in front of you in one moment, and now it's completely gone. Gutted is an understatement. Gutted. And if you can imagine, this is a team thing for us. Dean shoots a deer. I'm equally as happy, maybe happier than if I shot that same deer myself. And it goes vice versa. Same thing with my dad, Uncle Jay. Like, it's such a team thing, and it's so rewarding when one of us is successful because we know how hard it is to get there. And especially now, self-filming, documenting it all so y'all can come along with us. We know how hard that is, that as the bystander or as the cameraman, or even, for my dad and Uncle Jay in that scenario, just hearing the story and understanding the magnitude of it and it not going our way, it's enough to gut them just as much as it's enough to gut me. So you can only imagine what Dean's going through as well, because we had both longed for that scenario. We had both thought about it, talked about it, dreamt about it, prayed about it, and it's there and gone in literally a blink of an eye. It's not like a football game. You give up a long touchdown and now your offense can go on the back on the field and rebuttal that. There's no rebuttaling in hunting. There's no rebuttaling. And until or unless you retool yourself, get resituated, and get back on that same deer again, which at that time in our bow hunting career, in our filming career, it was a unicorn. That situation wasn't supposed to happen to begin with. Why would it ever happen twice? So the day warms up, the snow melts, and as much as Dean and I wanted to go back to that same stand and think that it was going to happen, we literally went on the complete other side of our property to another stand, hung way up high in a pine tree, and we just decided to sit there for the afternoon. And we had a couple small bucks cruise through, and they were cruising nose to the ground, by themselves, bobbing and weaving. Leaves are crunchy at this point, and they're cruising, So we felt like the afternoon was going to be fairly active. Well, sure enough, a doe comes barreling down the hill from our right to our left, literally, 18 yards in front of the tree, up, down through the creek and up the other side of the hill, faster than we could even turn the camera on. I'm thinking in my head, there's got to be a buck on her tail. And we're waiting, and Dean's got the camera rolling, and we're waiting, and nothing's happening. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. That doesn't... I've seen enough of these scenarios at this point. There's no way that happens. And there's nothing behind her. Well, all of a sudden, you could hear the leaves crunching. I think we heard a faint grunt, and it was get ready. Up over the hill comes this 9-point. Honestly, not much bigger, if anything, than the deer that Dean shot the year or two prior. Right on her trail, nose down. He gets 18 yards in front of the tree. Give him the old meh. Already full draw, let one rip right behind the shoulder. I'm thinking this deer's done. He does a banana curl, and he stands at 55 yards, and he's just standing there. And it was insane. There was and sorry, this is slightly graphic, but it's real. This is real. It's a part of bow hunting, but there was about a foot of insides hanging outside of this deer. The pressure from that arrow going through basically released a bunch of his insides, and they were literally hanging from him. It was kind of horrifying to even see, but once again, this is a part of hunting, and if you don't like it, I'm sorry. Probably not the podcast to be listening to, but it is what it is. But anyway, he's standing there dead broadside in a lane at 55 yards, and he's just standing there, and he's not going down, and he's not going down, he's not going down. I look at Dean, he looks at me. I grab another arrow, knock another arrow. I got a 50-yard pin. I got 20, 30, 40, 50 on my bow. At that time, I'm shooting a 4-pin sight. I pull back. I put my 50-yard pin like right at the top of his back, thinking that, 55, 56 yards, that thing's just going to drop right in there. And I'll tell you what, this deer was standing, meanwhile, up against a tree that was on the back side of him that was probably 2 inches in diameter. And he was kind of like almost leaning up against the tree. Well, I settled my pin right at the top of his back. I released that arrow, and that friggin' arrow literally hit the tree right at the top, like literally off the top of his back and stuck right in the tree, and it made the loudest crack, almost sounded like a shotgun going off, that you could ever imagine. And that deer then took off and gone. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, unbelievable. Once again, this whole scenario happened so fast. Once again, I had an opportunity at the time a buck of a lifetime that morning. Like, I'm still coming down off of that, but it was like, get back on the saddle. It's November, whatever. And now I got a deer hit. Had another opportunity at him, missed, and I feel like I just blew the deer into the next county. We had to go. We get down, right before dark, look at the arrow, little, blood on the arrow, but also a little bit of gut. And it was one of those things where when he stopped, he kind of just pinched, quartering to. And when you're in the heat of the moment, it's hard to pick out like those small angles that the deer's standing at. Like, if you could see a majority of the profile of his body, when you're in the heat of the moment, he's broadside. He's broadside. So when you go back and look at the footage, it's just like he's got like the slightest quartering to. I put it, right behind the shoulder. Same thing as Dean's. I think my shot was a little low, but the angle my shot looked perfect if the deer was standing broadside and you were on the ground. But the steep angle in the tree, and especially because the deer was only 18 yards, the exit hole was low. It kind of came out low gut on the other side because it came out a little bit back because of how he was quartering to. And that's why the deer didn't go down right away. Another sleepless night. We come back. We start picking up the trail. This deer literally walked from the backside of our property all the way to the front. And this goes back to the goose chasing part of things, and our skill set that we developed at a young age of tracking deer. But we had to have tracked this deer probably 600 yards with no snow, with just finding little bits of blood. And the deer never laid down until he walked literally from the front side of our property. He actually walked right by the cabin stand where we were the morning prior to, and he died within 80 yards of the road, right next to the creek. And he literally walked until he expired. After I gutted him, the shot was through the liver and came out gut, and it was just one of those things where he took it far. He took it as far as he could, never laid down. And, my second shot probably propelled him to go a lot farther than he would have otherwise. But man, once again, such a cool feeling. Literally at that point had completely forgotten about the opportunity that I had the morning before on what was a buck of a lifetime at that point. Dean and I were in the tree together. It was another successful mission, and albeit that it wasn't the perfect way to get it done, or it wasn't maybe how you see all these, perfect, quote unquote, perfect hunts go on TV. It was a successful mission for us. And it was another notch on our belt from a filming perspective. It made us feel like we were in pursuit of something that we were chasing, something that we were meant to be chasing. My dad was there. He got to recover the deer with us. So, for the three of us, me, Dean, and my dad to be there, like that was special. There's been very few deer that I've ever had to recover by myself, which I'm very, very thankful for. Because if you watch Bone Collector and Michael Waddell, and I agree with this wholeheartedly, you could have all these trophies up on the wall, and you could have, a trophy room filled of exotic species and elk, moose, caribou, African safari stuff, whitetail, turkey, whatever. But if you're sitting around in that trophy, quote unquote, trophy room, and you're maybe smoking on a cigar or you're sipping on a little bourbon and you're doing that by yourself, and you look around and a majority of the deer that are there or the animals that are up there are by yourself, and you don't really have anyone to share it with, and you don't have anybody that was there with you to, tell the story with or relive it with or say, remember when, we were tracking this one and this happened, or then how special are those hunts? How special are those hunts truly when you can only really share them with yourself? So I'm grateful that a lot of the deer that I have shot, 95% of the ones that I've shot, and I'm trying to think of one that has been without somebody. I get to look back at these mounts on the wall, and whether I shot them or not, more than likely I was there. More than likely I helped track or help recover or help drag or something. And though all of those on our wall, are shared with somebody. All of those on our wall you can call somebody up and be like, hey man, remember that 8-point that we, I don't know, whatever. We shot and smoked the deer, and it piled up over a hill, and we had to drag that thing 100 feet up a, pretty much straight up cliff, and dropped him. He rolled back down halfway the first time. Whatever the story is, but it's so cool to be able to not only relive a lot of these hunts for myself, but a lot of these hunts, most of these hunts, or most of these deer that I see on the wall in here, or at camp, or at our houses, whatever, we share those experiences with somebody, and that to me is what hunting's all about. That to me is the most valuable part of it. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for moments and opportunities that we've created for ourselves, for the couple stories that I just shared, to be able to share those with Dean and my dad for sure, and Uncle Jay, and a lot of our other hunting crew that, has kind of dwindled over the years just because people kind of fell out of it. But there's still, during family gatherings or anytime you run into, somebody that we've hunted with in the past, more than likely a hunting story comes up. More than likely you start sharing memories about remember this, remember that. And that to me is why, hunting is so valuable. It's, it gives you a sense of providing at any age that you start. It gives you a sense of camaraderie and community like you cannot believe. And for that, I'm just grateful. So as we sit down here in the old TAGNBRAG HQ, I've got a lot of nostalgia, and it's something that I needed right now. It's something that is fueling the fire, and it's always kind of going back to the beginning of the podcast. I think it's always very important to have goals and to have something that you're striving for and something that you're working towards. But you've got to always be able to ground yourself and come back to where it all started, or at least be able to go back and give yourself some kudos for how far you've come to get to where you're at. It's crazy where this whole thing has taken us, and just having the courage to kind of chase what we love and promote a lifestyle that we believe in, a lifestyle that's given us values that are hard to comprehend, a lifestyle that's given us, outside of the financial piece of it and building a livelihood from that way, being able to provide that way, a lifestyle that's made us feel like something far bigger and better than what we actually are. And it's certainly not been easy one bit along the way, but we're here. I'm happy about that. I'm grateful for it. There are days where I wish I could go back. I could go to a 9-to-5 job and clock in, clock out, come home, not have to worry about, something that didn't get done, or I could just kind of shut myself off. The work-life balance would actually coexist. In my world, my grandpa always says, when you run a business, the clock never stops. It's 24/7. And if something needs attended to, if somebody needs attended to at 11 o'clock at night, at 2 o'clock in the morning, at 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever, you have to attend to it. If you want a successful business, if you want, to build a successful brand, you have to attend to that. You have to give it attention. So it's not like a sporting event where, 60 minutes, you're on the clock. You got 60 minutes to perform. You do, you don't. Well, now we can go reevaluate. And during the next 60 minutes, hopefully you can perform a little bit better. It's not like that. It's 24/7, 365. You are on the clock. The work-life balance is very tough to balance at times. And I'm somebody that when I'm going to do something, I don't half-ass it. I full ass it, or ass and a half it, if you will. And so it's like, sometimes it's hard for me to put down, and it affects, family time and relationships and other things. But I've dedicated my life to this at this point, and it's for the opportunity to promote this lifestyle that has made me feel, it's just made me feel like I have a greater purpose than just clocking in and clocking out. It really has. And yeah, that's it. I mean, so I don't know. You can tell my mind is kind of going left, right, and sideways as I still look at these walls and just kind of feel the beginning again. The beginning of TAGNBRAG. It was far down the road of our hunting career, but as I feel kind of the nostalgia and stuff from the beginning times and the struggles that we had down here, and we were living in my dad's basement. I'm living and working out of my dad's basement. Super grateful to even have that as an opportunity, and sacrificed a lot along the way, had it made as far as like having the opportunity to do this, because I know, there's not a lot of other families or scenarios that you could be able to just essentially set life aside, go shack up in your dad's basement and try and start something and build something that you truly love to do. So I'm grateful for that. But, you're sacrificing or for me, it was sacrificing time with friends. It was sacrificing a social life. It was sacrificing a lot of significant other relationships at times, because it was so focused on we're starting this here. We got to get out of the basement, And now that we have, it's just crazy to look back and be like, whoa, I mean, how? I'm looking at some of the We've got products and stuff from some of the old companies that we worked with, some companies that don't even exist anymore. And it's just like, man, what a journey this has been. The highs, the lows. And I'm grateful for it all. I'm grateful for everybody that tunes in, that watches, that follows along with our, never-ending journey on our YouTube channel, and that tunes in on a week-to-week basis to listen to some of this stuff on Goose Chase. And it's amazing. It's humbling for me. It's something that I'm extremely grateful for. I'm indebted to all of you that have allowed me to do this. That have listened, that have watched, that have commented, that continually come back, that motivate me on a daily basis, that inspire me to keep going. I can't thank y'all enough. And so from the OG HQ, I just want to say thank you. If you don't already, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're not watching this on YouTube, go check it out, because I'm going to put some clips up here of these deer, kind of the layout of old HQ. It's a little bit of a mess right now, but some of the old photos on the wall and stuff. And go check out the video version of this podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're going to start posting some stuff on Twitter too, I think, because it's a very open and honest location to do that. But this is Thursday. We will see you all right back here next Wednesday on another episode of Goose Chase, and we cannot thank you all enough for listening in once again. Yeah, that's it. That's all. Hope y'all are staying warm in this crazy weather. We got a crazy snowstorm here today, and we will see y'all right back here next Wednesday on another episode of Goose Chasing. I love each and every one of y'all. God bless.